Hello and welcome to my channel. I thought I would try a little something. Now you can see, arms. Let me just move this camera around. I don't know if I'm going to be showing you anything overly exciting, but what's it doing? It's not turning. Okay, looking at the tray. Alright, you can kind of disregard these cameras off to the side. There's nothing really happening, and this is just me with my wet hair post shower. I'm doing I Miss You, and I thought maybe I'll use it for a WiPnChat, test out my new computer, see if its brains are working, and have a bit of a chat. I woke up this morning to an article that was talking about a mother and baby home in Ireland, that there's a huge I think it's a commission into the scandal of the nuns and how the mother and baby home was run and the psychological damage it caused and all of that kind of stuff over in Ireland. There's a couple of mother and baby homes in Ireland, and while I didn't actually live in one, I could have done. So I'm going to tell you the story about my adopted daughter. Now I'm doing this in a way for prosperity, because I don't know if she will get in touch with me when she's ready. I would like to think that she would, but if she doesn't and I'm not around, I've maybe got the video that somebody else can go, you know what, the story is here, go and watch. This is who your mum was kind of at the time, and this is who she is now. So I'm not going to refer to her as her now name. I'm going to refer to her as her birth name, just to give her privacy. Not that I actually know all of her details. So this is the story. I was, as I've mentioned before, I lost my mum when I was day before I was 13, and I think as a result of that and just typical, well, I don't know if I was a typical teenager, but I was certainly an angry teenager. Had an awful lot of explosive redhead anger, I remember. Didn't really know how to deal with it anyway. Was shunted off to boarding school. That is not a proper drill. Hang on. Was shunted off to boarding school, and maybe as a result of that had this feeling like I wasn't loved. So was convinced through scouting to have sex with a guy, and that was underage, and that was that period, and I think that opened me up to thinking that the only way to get a guy to love me was to have sex with him. Anyway, the next guy that I met with any serious relationship, he had been already sexually active. There was a couple of years between us, and we ended up having sex, as you do as horny teenagers, and fell pregnant within, I think, the first couple of times of actually having sex. So ended up pregnant and told him, no, actually I didn't tell him. I think I was in denial. I had been tracking periods forever, so I knew I was late. it didn't do anything, and it was only because my sister was going away to be a missionary in Africa, I think, that I decided I should probably take a test, and I had to tell people. So I was probably a month and a half along before I even took a test, and then I was, I think, nearly 3 months along before I actually told anyone. Now, during this period, I found that I had my first outbreak of cold sores. Now, this wasn't just cold sores. This was cold sores on my lips, on my face. It went from my top lip right up to my nose. It was all over my chin. I was so stressed. A complete basket case. Nobody said anything to me that I can recall. But I remember being so self-conscious of how I looked. It may or may not have been my first outbreak, but it was certainly my worst, except in 2005 when I had a pretty bad one and miscarried. The boyfriend told me he'd be there, and he had a camp, the Explorer Belt, on in Europe around about the same time I was due. I was due in June. And no, I wasn't due in June. I was due in July. So he had the Explorer Belt that he was going to take part in. The people who really rallied around me were my Venture Scouts, my troop. I had friends in Ventures who were phenomenal. And part of that, I was also doing a first aid course. And I remember being put into a spinal stretcher, strapped in, and they test that you're in it properly, in practice, by flipping you upside down. So they roll you over so you're facing the ground. That was a little bit nerve-wracking, and I think it might have been then that I had said to the first aid people, hey, I'm pregnant. You better not do something like that. But anyway, I met somebody there after being ditched by this other boyfriend, and he said that he'd be there for me for the birth. Now, this guy was... So I was dating the 21-year-old before getting pregnant. He officially broke it off with me on Valentine's Day. Hence, Valentine's Day does not have happy memories for me for the most part. Funnily enough, my wedding anniversary is the day after Valentine's Day. My first wedding anniversary. But it's also my divorce anniversary, ironically. Anyway, so started going out with this guy from the first aid group. He was actually there for the birth. The father dropped me like a hot stone, thinking that he had gotten both myself and his ex-girlfriend pregnant at the same time. I actually never knew what happened to her either. And this is Catholic Ireland, and this is, I suppose, where my story gets a bit kind of different, sinister, I don't know. So I was pregnant. Dad was newly married by a couple of years, and I was told by him, and this is my recollection, I'm not judging my dad during this, and I have said it to him before, so none of this I don't think is any secret to him if he was to happen to trip over my YouTube. So I remember the day that my sister, who was going to Africa, came home after telling my dad and his wife the news that I was pregnant. Well, stepmom actually threw me in a hug, unbelievably, and I just bawled my eyes out. My dad, and my recollection is, gave me the filthiest look ever. Now, to put it into context, my big sister, who is 11 years older than me, was also pregnant at the age of, I think she was 16 when she had her daughter. So, This is the second daughter getting pregnant out of wedlock in Irish society in 1989. And I don't know if he felt the stigma or what, but there was a look of disgust that I will never ever forget. Now, the first things that were said to me shortly after that were that if I was to keep the baby, I would have to move out. And my sister actually had said to me, she was a Christian, she said to me, well, she said, you have a couple of choices. You can abort, you can adopt, you can keep. I said, well, you know, you can go with your abort. That just wasn't something I could do. And I don't even know, although there definitely was an abortion in Ireland, I would have had to have travelled over to the UK for an abortion. But yeah, I was dead set against abortion. And that's just me. If that's something that you might have gone through, then that's your decision and your choice, and you're the one who has to live with whatever it is you have to live with as a result, whether it's guilt or relief, whatever. That's your choice. Sorry, I think I'm shaking because it's quite a touchy subject for me, this. So pregnancy went okay. I don't think I got to many classes because I ended up going into labour early. But during pregnancy, my dad took me around to some of the mothers' homes. Now, the mother and baby homes, mother and baby units, were bed sits. Now, these bed sits were literally a bed. There might have been a kind of kitchen counter off to one side, and you shared a toilet with other girls in the same situation. It was the size of a bedroom, effectively, and that's what my choice was. Have a baby and move into a bed sit. So I don't know if he had his mind made up or what, but I sure as hell did not want to give any kid of mine that kind of life. I wanted a better life than I felt I had had, and yeah, so the next thing he also did was put me in touch with the Catholic adoption agency. Now, there's good and bad things to say about the agency. I met a social worker called Breed, who Breed was very young. I think she was in her 20s, possibly. She was a fairly new social worker. And we talked, and she wanted to know what I wanted in parents to bring up my baby. And I had a thought about it, and I said, well, I would like her to learn the piano. I would like her to learn horse riding. Something like that. Yeah, to have pets, that kind of thing. So, met this couple that paired up, and now I may have been given a couple of profiles of the families to read, but I only met one couple. This was going to be their first adoption. No, this must have been their second adoption, because I was given the name of the sister, I think. Either way, that's I suppose their story. There was another sibling along the way. So made the arrangement that the adoption might go through. Met the parents, kind of authorised the adoption. And yeah, but the horror bit for me, I suppose, was the fact that my options were the mother and baby home, on my own, self-sufficient, no clue at all what the hell I was doing as a mum. I had a niece that obviously my sister had, but I had no clue about anything to do with babies. I didn't know how to change nappies. I didn't know how to care for them. I was still an angry and very confused teenager, and it felt like I was pushed into a corner. Now, if you're hearing my story and you get righteously indignant about how dare my parents or my dad make this decision or anything else, and you think you can message me exclaiming that anger, go to hell. This is my story and this is how I ended up living it. I don't need your opinions on what my father did or anything else. We have hashed it out. I have told him how I felt, and that door is closed. I'm just telling you how the feelings were at the point in time, not years and years later. So, yeah, the mother and baby homes, they weren't supervised. This was like an independent bedsit, but there were other mothers around. The support system, I don't remember if there was money I could have claimed. I don't think we investigated that to know what my income actually would have been. I don't think there was any of that. It was just like, I can't live like this. There is no way in hell I'm bringing up my baby to live like this. I'm going to have to go down the path of adoption. So, 3 weeks early, 3.5 weeks early, I went into labour. No, sorry, did I? What was I doing? I think I ended up going into one of my prenatal checks, and I was getting labour pains, and I ended up in a ward that must have had like 8 or 10 beds in it in the maternity hospital in Dublin, and was there overnight. And I remember a nun, like she was dressed like a sister, you know, with the funky habity thing on the head and everything else. I don't know, maybe it was just a uniform at the time. I remember her coming and doing a check. I'm gonna spare you those details. And she said, oh yeah, you started to dilate and whatever, so they sent me down the corridor to the delivery suite. So the boyfriend at the time was cold. He came in, and I had about 7 hours labour. Maybe less. I think it was around 10 o'clock it all started, but maybe less. Anyway, but yeah, had the labour, and she was born at dawn. Now, the hospital at the time had music playing on the tannoy, the kind of speaker system, and Hey Jude was playing on the tannoy, and that became part of her name. It was Dawn, so she was called Dawn in amongst the names that I gave her, and Jude was the Hey Jude. So yeah, 3.5 weeks early. She was tiny. I wasn't a big girl at all. I was a skinny wee thing. And she was whisked away from me pretty quickly and taken to the antenatal unit. Not antenatal, what is it? The baby unit? Neonatal unit. So she was taken to neonatal. She ended up going on oxygen and all that kind of thing. Now, I tried expressing milk for her. I went and fed her. She actually took a feed from me. And then I was in hospital for a couple of days. My scout friends came in to see me. If I didn't have the scouts, the ventures around me, I probably wouldn't have got through. They were incredible friends. There was never any judgment. It was just family. They were brilliant. So I have a couple of photos of her when we were together. One of them is me in a pair of dungarees with a nail that's shaped really, really sharp and pointy, a thumbnail, kind of stroking her head and looking tired and miserable. That's a photo that Dad took. I'm not going to insert pictures, I don't think. I may in post-editing, but for now I'm not going to insert pictures. So she was in this mother and baby unit for 2.5 weeks. I think I went in nearly every day. I think there was one day in the first week I didn't go in because I was told, look, you're really tired. Just take the break, we're looking after her, she's fine. And it's not like I could really have done anything. I wasn't breastfeeding her or anything. Yeah, so it was just to spend time with my baby. And I was confused. But in the end, I let her go for fostering. She was marked as being an adoption kid in the hospital, so I think the hospital staff didn't necessarily want me bonding with her, but they didn't stop me from bonding either. They didn't stop me from holding her, I don't think. When the day came that she was to leave hospital, I think I was in there, and her new parents weren't there, they weren't involved. The foster care was a 6-week foster care, and she was taken from me, and I bawled, absolutely bawled, ugly tears, howling, crying, in complete anguish, handing over my daughter to go into foster care. Yeah, I don't know if that's ever something you really get over. 6 weeks after foster care, I think I had signed paperwork for the adoption, and she then moved into her new family's home. At some point in time, the sister was either adopted or she was already there, so she was either going to be the younger sister or the older sister, I can't recall. I signed a piece of paper with the adoption saying I wanted to know when the order for the adoption went through the court, and I got nothing for 6 months, and I thought, this is really weird. Adoptions usually go through in about 6 months back in the 90s in Ireland. And I was going to church now at this stage myself as a completely broken teenager. I went to my sister's best friend in the church and I said, look, this hasn't gone through, what do I do? And she said, okay, well, we'll pray, which is the first go-to, I suppose, as a Christian. And she and I prayed, and literally the next day the letter was in the post saying, you wanted to be informed when the adoption was going through, it's going through in a couple of days. And I was like, okay, well, that's an answer to prayer, even if I didn't like the answer, because I was kind of saying to this woman, I'll go and I'll get her back. You know, what's taking so long? Well, it turned out that it took so long because she had congenital heart issues, and she had what the doctors termed as failure to thrive. And that in turn led to the discovery of a heart murmur, and that discovery led to major surgery on her. I'm going to, I think they're all equally as much as anything else. Alright, so I'm going to have alarms going off in a second. I've got to go out. The adoption did actually go through, and I corresponded with the agency quite frequently. I went for counselling with a psychiatrist or psychologist. I remember crying right through my whole sessions with the psychologist. It was a really, really horrible time. Yeah, and reading this article has kind of dragged it all up and gone, here you go, slap in the face. This too could have been you, but thankfully it wasn't. And the survival rate in these mother and baby homes, the infant deaths were colossal. And I think that's what led to some of the commission and the suspicions being raised. So I guess in a way it was there, but for the grace of God goes her or I, to be honest. She has her family, her parents. It was a closed adoption, so while I knew the parents' first names, that's all I had. But I corresponded with them to say, hey, I'm getting married, hey, I'm having a baby, hey, this is happening and that's happening, and every couple of years I'd send them a letter saying, this is happening, we're doing this, and this is what, you know, she's got siblings and all of that kind of things. And I sent her stuffed animals, which they asked me to stop because her older sister's mum, yes, so she must have been an older sister, the older sister's mum wasn't interested in keeping contact with their daughter, the other daughter. So they asked me to stop because it wasn't fair on the older sibling. So it was a bit hard, but that's what I did. So I wrote instead, and her parents were phenomenal. I am forever grateful for them sharing her life with me as she grew up. So I'd send them photos of me and maybe the kids, because she had brothers and sisters. And they would send me photos that were not current. They were a couple of years old or a year old of her, and as she grew older with her sister. And she still had the cuddly animals, and, you know, she had the dog, and she did the horse riding, and she did the piano playing, and she did everything I wanted her to do and to have. And I really hope she has had the best life that she could have had, without any regret. I gave her up because I didn't think I could give her what she needed. And she might say she needed a mum. I'm saying she got that mum in her adoptive mum. And I have always thought of her. And I have always had to continue giving her up. Now you might not understand that, but I'll try and explain, and this may end up as a 2-part video because I have to go to work. Hey Google, stop. I hope that got it. Sorry if I've triggered all your Googles. Yeah, so with the prayer for the adoption going through, it was kind of like, okay, that's an answer to prayer, right? Settle the hell down and just get on with life without her. And I've had to do that repeatedly. So I've gotten photos, and I've gone scrambling on the internet when we eventually had the internet, going, what school is that uniform from? Where is that from? Can I go find her? Can I hunt her down? Can I, you know, they've got this shopping bag, and I would have to give her up all over again, saying, you prayed, and God gave you the answer, and even if you don't like the answer, you're going to have to walk that walk. And I gave her up again and again and again, as much as it killed me. So, yeah, she's 29. God. She did get in touch with me after she turned 18, I wrote to her and I passed on my information and said, hey look, I'm here. If you ever want to get in touch, I need to get in touch with them again to pass on my new details. But she said, yeah, that's good, thanks, but no, I'm not interested in meeting, and we're at the opposite side of the world now anyway. I think I was travelling back to Ireland, and it was kind of like, hey, would you like to meet? And it was like, yeah, but no. And that's fine, because she needs to be ready to meet me, and I would like to get to know her slowly. I sure as hell don't expect to fill the mother slot that her mum had. I think her parents, well, they certainly came across as being parents I would have loved for me. So I hope she has had a good life. And that is all I can hope for at this stage. So, yeah, that's kind of my story. I didn't end up in a mother and baby home, but it did bring up memories of it. Yeah, I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's got kids of her own yet. I hope and pray she is happy. And yeah, even at the age of 29, 30, I still have to kind of go, you know what? I gave her up because it was what God wanted for her life and God wanted for my life somehow. Yeah. Sherry once mentioned that we choose our parents and we choose to have those life lessons. God, I could have done without some of those life lessons, but it has made me who I am. And even at the age of 16, when I was 15, 16, when I was grieving my mum, I was smart enough to be able to say I wouldn't change a thing because it would change who I was. So, while the pain is horrible when you're in it, it does change you it changes you. And not necessarily for the better. I haven't necessarily dealt with it the best, but I have lived it. I'm trying to get there. Yeah. Alright. This is, if you haven't noticed, it's I Miss You from Mandy Manzano. I don't necessarily pine for somebody I know. I kind of pine for what I've lost and don't know in that. But we do live under the same moon, and the sentiment is the exact same as when Mandy created this image, missing her best friend, and this was how she dealt with it. She was living with the same moon, and they were able to connect from that distance. So, yeah, there's a lot of good sentiment in this image. I'm learning how to use the multi-placers and quite enjoying them, funnily enough, in the most part. And yeah, I'm gonna very, very quickly finish up. Thank you for listening. This won't end up as a two-part. I'm just going to cut it off there. It is nice and short. It's only a 35-minute video. And yeah, say thank you for listening. In this instance, if you disagree with what my dad did, please keep your opinions to yourself. I have enough triggers as it is. And I'm sorry, but it was a different time back in the 90s in our Catholic Ireland. Yeah. If you'd like, though, to drop me a comment, please do. If you have a similar story to tell, please share. Please don't keep it locked up. We make decisions for many, many reasons. And if you would like to private message me to share your story, then please do. I don't think we should walk this walk alone at all. And yeah, just don't be alone in your story, whatever it is. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye for now.